अवधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादाचार्यललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिन्निति नाम्ने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणि प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत वेदांत श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे सर्वशास्त्रादि पीयूष सर्ववेदिक सत्फल सर्वसिद्धांत रत्नाढ्य सर्वलौकिक दृक्पथ सर्वभागवत प्राण श्रीमद् भागवत प्रभो कलिध्वांतोदितादित्य परिवर्तित परमानंद पाठाय प्रेमवर्षक्षराय सर्वदा सर्वसेव्याय श्री कृष्णाय नमोस्तु मे अदेक बंधो मत्संगिन मद्गुरो मन्महाधन निस्तारक मद्भाग्य मदानंद नमोस्तुते असाधु साधुतादाय नतनी चोच्चताकर हालमुंच गदाचिन् मां प्रेमणा हृत्कण्ठयोः स्फुर ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय टेक्स्ट 15 नारायण परावेदा देवा नारायण अंगजा नारायण परालोका नारायण परामखा The Vedic literatures are made by and are meant for the Supreme Lord. The demigods are also meant for serving the Lord as parts of his body. The different planets are also meant for the sake of the Lord, and different sacrifices are performed just to please him. Veda pratipadyeshu saparah ityadi. Amongst the various topics discussed in the Vedas, he is supreme. Gamya, Ijya, Gyeya, Vachyeshu, Rajyeshu cha, Aroharihi. Lord Hari is supreme as the supreme destination, the supreme object of worship, the supreme object of knowledge, the supreme object of expression, the supreme object of administration, the supreme administrator. Tapasa yajamana sarvalokebhye evacha. He is superior to everyone, those who engage in various forms of worship through austerity. It's from Varaha Purana. Tat prapanchayati dvabhyam. So what was stated earlier is now elaborated in two verses. Narayanaha paraha karanam esham te. Narayana is the cause of the Vedas. अनेनैव शास्त्रयोनित्व प्रतिपादन ईश्वरे प्रतिपादनेन ईश्वरे प्रमाणं सर्वज्ञत्वादिकं च उक्तम्. So in this way, by stating that the Supreme Lord Narayana is the cause of the scriptures, it is pointed out that he is the source of all knowledge. He is also omniscient. Devasya tatangat jata ataha na tad vyatirikta. The devas are born from his body, therefore they are not separate from him. Lokaha swargadeha tat anandamsha. The worlds such as swarga are portions of his bliss. Makhas tat sadhanabhuta. The fire sacrifices constitute the means to attain him. Whereas it was pointed out that Vasudeva was everything. I have come from the lotus navel of Lord Narayana, who is an Amsha of Vasudeva. So everything is focusing on him. This is Srinath Chakravarti. The Jiva Goswami, Sarvashastra Samanvayena, Narayana Para iti dvayam. As the single harmonizing center of all scriptures, Narayana is the central point. This is noted in two verses beginning with the current verse. Shri Narayana eva upasyatmena paraha atparya vishayah yesham te vedaha. Shri Narayana is the supreme worshipable object. The Vedas have him as their um, intended subject of discussion. Nano anyepi devaha tatra upasyatmena abhidhiyante. But don't the Vedas also teach that other devas are also meant to be worshipped? Satyam, that's true. Tepi Narayana anga prabhavatvena eva tatha varniyante iti arthaha. The meaning is the devas also, they have, because they have emanated from the limbs of Lord Narayana, therefore they are described as also being worshipable. Yepi tad ashrayaha lokaha tepi tad padaprapti hetavaha mahacha tatparaha. And uh, all those who have taken shelter of him, uh, no, the worlds have all taken shelter of him. All the worlds to be achieved, they are all uh, under his shelter. The fire sacrifices, they are the causes to attain his abode. So they are also focused on him. That anandamsha abhasarupatva, that sadhanatvacha iti bhavaha. The implication is the worlds have a semblance of a portion of his bliss, whereas the fire sacrifices are the means by which they can one can attain him. Devadayah Narayane Satvatvat Narayana Adhinatvacha Narayana Para iti. The Devas and other celestial beings, they are situated in Narayana and they are dependent on Narayana. Therefore, it is said that Devas uh, are also focused on Narayana. Yad adhishtanam ityasya yad adhinam iti asya uttaram uttam. This is the answer to the question. Who's your foundation? Under whom are you functioning? According to the Vedanta Sutras, Shastra Unitvat, the Supreme Lord is the author of all revealed scriptures. And all revealed scriptures are for knowing the Supreme Lord. But we should keep in mind that even though it is said that the Supreme Lord is the author of all the revealed scriptures, the revealed scriptures are eternal and he is also eternal. So he is the eternal author of the eternal scriptures. He is not the author of revealed scriptures that did not exist before. Or you find this expression, apaurusheya. Apaurusheya means that which is not composed by anybody. So many times this expression is used, that the Vedas, four Vedas, do not have any author. They are authorless. These expressions are used sometimes. What does it mean? They are authorless. Usually when you have a book, you have an author. Before he wrote it, the book did not exist. But here the situation is not like that. Krishna is eternal, his expansions are eternal, and the Vedas are also eternal. But because he repeatedly reveals them, he is considered to be the author. And the content of the Veda is nothing but his intentions. Therefore, he is said to be the author. So he is metaphorically the author, not in the literal sense. The Veda is he himself. Vedo Narayana Sakshat Swayambhu Riti Shushruma. The Veda is nothing but Narayana. It's a literary expansion of Narayana. Since he is eternal, Veda is also eternal. So that you should keep in mind. Veda means knowledge that leads to the Lord. The Vedas are made just to revive the forgotten consciousness of the conditioned souls, and any literature not meant for reviving God consciousness is rejected at once by the Narayana Para devotees. Such deluding books of knowledge, not having Narayana as their aim, or not at all knowledge, but are the playgrounds for crows who are interested in the rejected refuse of the world. We have already seen this in the first canto. Any book of knowledge, science or art, must lead to the knowledge of Narayana. Otherwise, it must be rejected. That is the way of advancement of knowledge. The supreme worshipable deity is Narayana. The demigods are recommended secondarily for worship in relation to Narayana because the demigods are assisting hands in the management of the universal affairs. As officers of a kingdom are respected due to their relation to the king, the demigods are worshipped due to their relation to the king, relation to the Lord. Without the Lord's relation, worship of the demigods is unauthorized, avidhi purvakam. Just it is improper to water the leaves and branches of a tree without watering its root. Therefore, the demigods are also dependent on Narayana. The lokas or different planets are attractive because they have different varieties of life and bliss, partially representing the Satchidananda Vigraha. Everyone wants an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. In the material world, such an eternal life of bliss and knowledge is progressively realized in the upper planets. As one progresses through the upper planets, one more and more experiences a semblance of a portion of Sat, Chit, and Ananda until one reaches Brahmaloka, where is able to realize it to the largest possible extent one can realize it in material existence. But after reaching that, one is inclined to achieve further progress along the path back to Godhead. Duration of life with a proportionate quantity of bliss and knowledge may be increased from one planet to another. One can increase the duration of life to thousands and hundreds of thousands of years in different planets, but nowhere is there eternal life. But one who can reach the highest planet, that of Brahma, can aspire to reach the planets in the spiritual sky where life is eternal. Therefore, the progressive journey from one planet to another culminates in reaching the supreme planet of the Lord, Adham, where life is eternal and full of bliss and knowledge. All different kinds of sacrifice are performed just to satisfy Lord Narayana with a view to reaching him. And the best sacrifice recommended in this age of Kali is a Sankirtan Yagya, the mainstay of the devotion service of a Narayana Para devotee. At 16. Narayana Paro Yogo, Narayana Param Tapaha, Narayana Param Jnanam, Narayana Paragati. All different types of meditation or mysticism are means for realizing Narayana. All austerities are aimed at achieving Narayana. Culture of transcendental knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Narayana. And ultimately, salvation is entering the kingdom of Narayana. Yoga, pranayamadi. Here, yoga refers to pranayama and other processes of Ashtanga yoga. Tapastat sadhyam chittai kagviryam. Austerity here refers to concentration of the mind on him. This concentration of the mind on him leads to him. Jnanam tat sadhyam. The transcendental knowledge that is referred to here is that which leads to Lord Narayana. That is that phalam. Gatihi, or the destination, is it refers to the result of attaining him. Anenaiva sarvam tat adhinam ityuktam. So through all this, it is pointed out that everything is subordinate to Lord Narayana. Tatha yoga ashtanga sankhya. Here yoga can also refer to sankhya. Tat sadhyam brahma jnanam cha tat param. Tadiya samanya akara prakashikatvat. Tat jnanasya yoga tapasos tat sadhanatvat iti bhavaha. Here, knowledge can be taken to refer to Brahma Jnana. Because, and that is also focused on Narayana. Because Brahman is nothing but the undifferentiated effulgence of him. Kim bahuna gatis tat prapyam brahma api tat para tat samanya akara prakasha shatvena tat adhina avirbhavat Vat. And the destination of Brahman, impersonal Brahman, is actually nothing but attainment of Narayana, because this Brahman, undifferentiated, his undifferentiated effulgence known as Brahman, is a manifestation that is dependent on him. Taduktam Sri Matsyadevena Satyavratam Prati. This is referred to by Lord Sri Matsya to Satyavrata. Madiyam Mahimanam cha Parabrahmeti Shabditam. 8.24.38. You should understand my glory to be Parabrahma. Atra Makhadayaha Takshakyam Shurupaha. Here, Makha or fire sacrifices and so on should be understood to be portions of his potencies. Gatistu tat phalatva tat anandamsham bhuta eva. Whereas the gati or the destination being the result of attaining him is nothing but a portion of his bliss, which is liberation, different forms of liberation. In meditation, there are two systems of yoga, namely Ashtanga Yoga and Sankhya Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is practiced in concentrating the mind, releasing oneself from all engagements by the regulative processes of meditation, concentration, sitting postures, blocking the movements of the internal circulation of air, etc. Sankhya Yoga is meant to distinguish the truth from ephemerals. Ephemeral means temporary. Truth means permanent substances, permanent entities. So Sankhya Yoga is a process to know, understand, and realize the distinction between the permanent entities and the impermanent entities. But ultimately, both systems are meant for realizing the impersonal Brahman, which is but a partial representation of Narayana, the personality of Godhead. As we have explained before, the impersonal Brahman effulgence is only a part of the personality of Godhead. Impersonal Brahman is situated on the person of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, Brahman is glorification of the personality of Godhead. It's glorification of the personality of Godhead means it is glorification of, it is the glory of the Lord himself. The Supreme Lord is glorious, and it is a glory which is expressed as Brahman. This is confirmed both in Bhagavad Gita and in the Matsya Purana. Here in Matsya, which has most probably been editorially misread as Matsya Purana. Matsya can refer to a statement of Matsya Dev, but it can also refer to Matsya Purana. This being referred to in a statement of Lord Matsya in the Bhagavata Purana. Gati refers to the ultimate destination or the last word in liberation. Oneness with the impersonal Brahmajyoti is not ultimate liberation. Superior to that is the sublime association of the personality of Godhead in one of the innumerable spiritual planets in the Vaikuntha sky. Therefore, the conclusion is that Narayana, or the personality of Godhead, is the ultimate destination for all kinds of yoga systems as well as all kinds of liberation. Text 17. Tasyapi drashturishasya kutastasyakilatmanaha srijyam srijami srishtoham ikshayeva bhichoditaha. Inspired by him only, I discover what is already created by him, Narayana, under his supervision as the all-pervading super soul. And I also am created by him only. So here it is pointed out that Lord Narayana is a seer, he is a controller. He is over everyone's intelligence. He is a super soul. And I myself, I have been created. And I create that which is already created by because when I'm inspired by him, when he glances over me. Then what do you do? If he is doing all these things, then what are you doing? Anticipating this question, he speaks. तस्य सृज्यमपि तेन सृष्टोऽहं सृजामि. I myself am created by him. And I simply create that which is meant to be created by him. Ikshaya, katakshena, by his glance. Tatra hetavaha. And the reason for that is spelled out in the first half of the verse. तस्यापि एतस्यापि उक्तप्रकारस्य नारायणस्यापि द्रष्टुः ईश्वरस्य श्रीवासुदेवस्य सृष्टं सृजामि तेनैव सृष्टोऽहम्. Chaitanya Mata Manjusha interprets this verse to mean that Sri Vasudeva is the Ishvara, who is the seer of even Narayana. तेनैव सृष्टोऽहं तत्रापि तदीक्षैव प्रेरितः. आदाचित् कस्य. When does this happen? Kutastasya, Kutam Brahma, Tad Rupa Nija Dhamastasya Akilatmanah. The Supreme Lord stays in his own abode. That abode is Brahman. He is the Supreme Soul. So when he glances, then I am impelled and then I create. Srijyam, Srashtu Yogyam api. I create that which is meant to be created. What does that mean? I create that which is fit to be created. Not Srashtu, it was Srashtu. Ikshaya iti tasya agyaya eva iti artha. And I create by his glance, which means I create by his order. Drashturiti. He is described as a seer, Lord Narayana. Tacha api mama tasya sakshitve, ishwaratve, kutastatve, sarva antaryamitve satyapi. Here, the Supreme Lord is described as the witness. Seer means witness. Ishasya indicates that he is the Ishvara, the controller. He is also situated always in his position. Akilatmana indicates that he is the inner controller of everyone. It is only because of this arrangement that creation happens, not because of any other arrangement. Swasya jivatvam tasya cha ishwaratvam yanjitam. In this way, Lord Brahma reveals that he is a jiva, whereas Lord Narayana is the Ishvara. Tatha cha shrutayaha. And there are Shruti statements to this effect. Eko deva sarvabhuteshu gudha sarvavyapi sarvabhutantaratma karmadhyaksha sarvabhutadipasah sakshi cheta evalo nirgunascha Vetashvata Upanishad. There's only one Supreme Lord who's hidden amongst all the creatures. He is all pervading. He is the innermost self of all the selves. He supervises their activities. He lives within all the creatures. He is the witness. He is conscious. He is isolated from matter and he is free from the modes of material nature. Esha Bhuta Adipaderesha Lokeshwaro Lokapalaha. This Supreme Being, he is the Lord of all the creatures. This Supreme Being, he is the controller of all the worlds. He is the protector of all the worlds. Brahmadi Vipulka Paryanta Sarva Prani Buddhishu Avashishtataya Upalabhyamanaha Sarva Prani Buddhisto Yada Tada Kutastha iti uchyate. Because he is situated in the intelligence of all the creatures and he is realized as the one who is remaining when one analyzes the intelligence of all the creatures from the ant to Brahma. Chitrandu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Prabhu, in 16th verse translation, when it is said all different types of meditation and mysticism, so this means only authorized versions of meditation, not self-created versions which are
Yeah,
proven.
all the successful forms of meditation, all the meditation systems which provide what has been uh, provide the fruits that are mentioned in the scriptures, and the forms of meditations and the procedures also have to be from the scriptures.
And what if the practitioner is not aware only that ultimately he has to reach Narayan? He has not started meditation with that intention. Then how can we say that that his aim is
because
also Narayan?
because that is the actual intended destination, but he doesn't know that. Most of the conditioned souls who take to Vedic culture are like that. But nevertheless, they are brought in. Even Brahma, the creator of the universe, admits that he is not the actual creator, but is simply inspired by Lord Narayana and therefore creates under his superintendence those things already created by him, the super soul of all living entities. Two identities of soul, the super soul and the individual soul, are admitted to be in the living entity, even by the greatest authority of the universe. The super soul is the supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, whereas the individual soul is the eternal servitor of the Lord. The Lord inspires the individual soul to create what is already created by the Lord, and by the goodwill of the Lord, a discoverer of something in the world is accredited as the discoverer. It is said that Columbus discovered the Western Hemisphere, but actually the tract of land was not created by Columbus. The vast tract of land was already there by the omnipotency of the Supreme Lord, and Columbus, by dint of his past service unto the Lord, was blessed with the credit of discovering America. Similarly, no one can create anything without the sanction of the Lord, since everyone sees according to his ability. This ability is also awarded by the Lord according to one's willingness to render service unto the Lord. One must therefore be voluntarily willing to render service unto the Lord, and uh, thus the Lord will empower the doer in proportion to his surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Lord Brahma is a great devotee of the Lord. Therefore, he has been empowered or inspired by the Lord to create such a universe as the one manifested before us. The Lord also inspired Arjuna to fight in the field of Kurukshetra as follows. Tasmat tvam uttishthai yasholabhasva jitva shatrun bhunktva rajyam samriddham mayaivaite nihata purvameva nimittamatram bhavasam yasachin. This is Bhagavad Gita 11.53. The battle of Kurukshetra or any other battle at any place or at any time is made by the will of the Lord, for no one can arrange such mass annihilation without the sanction of the Lord. The party of Duryodhana insulted Draupadi, a great devotee of Krishna, and she appealed to the Lord as well as to all the silent observers of this unwarranted insult. Arjuna was then advised by the Lord to fight and take credit. Otherwise, the party of Duryodhana will be killed anyway by the will of the Lord. So, Arjuna was advised just to become the agent and take the credit for killing great generals like Bhishma and Karna. In the Vedic writings, such as the Katha Upanishad, the Lord is described as the Sarvabhutantaratma, or the personality of God who resides in everyone's body and who directs everything for one who is a soul surrendered unto him. Those who are not surrendered souls are put under the care of the material nature. Ramayan Sarvabhutani Yantrarudhani Mayaya. Therefore, they're allowed to do things on their own account and suffer the consequences themselves. Devotees like Brahma and Arjuna do not do anything on their own account, but as fully surrendered souls, they always await the indications from the Lord. Therefore, they attempt to do something which appears very wonderful to ordinary vision. One of the Lord's names is Urukrama, or one whose actions are very wonderful and are beyond the imagination of the living being. So, the action of his devotees sometimes appear very wonderful due to the direction of the Lord. Beginning from Brahma, the topmost intelligent living entity within the universe, down to the smallest ant, every living entity's intelligence is overseen by the Lord in his transcendental position as the witness of all actions. The subtle presence of the Lord is felt by the intelligent man who can study the psychic effects of thinking, feeling, and willing. Text 18. Sattvam rajastama iti nirgunasya gunastrayah sthiti sargan nirodheshu grihita mayaya vibho. The Supreme Lord is pure spiritual form, transcendental to all material qualities. Yet, for the sake of the creation of the material world and its maintenance and annihilation. He accepts through his external energy the material modes of nature called goodness, passion, and ignorance. ननु कुतोऽयं जीवेश्वर विभागः यतः त्वं प्रेर्यः स च प्रेरकः स्यात्. Now, what is this distinction between the Jiva and Ishvara, because of which you are the one who is being impelled and he is the one who is the impeller? Iti apekshayam, anticipating this, Jiveshwara Vibhaga Hetumahatribihi. He explains the distinction between the Jiva and Ishvara. The reason for the distinction between, the reason for distinguishing between the Jiva and Ishvara in 3 verses beginning with the current verse. Nirgunasya api Ishwarasya ete trayah gunaha badhananti iti utarena anvayah. Even though he is Nirguna, the 3 modes of material nature are uh, connected with him. That they are connected with him will be stated later. Tambhutaha. What is the nature of these gunas? These are uh, accepted by that independent Lord through his Maya potency for the purpose of creation and so on. Gunastu Maya Karya Ityaha. Nina Chakravarti says that the modes of material nature are effects of Maya. Tasya vibhor nirgunasya prakrita guna rahitasya. Nirgunasya indicates that the Supreme Almighty Being is devoid of all the material modes. So he accepts these modes through Maya. Kim nimittam, for what purpose? Sthityavishu nimittam bhuteshu, because for the purpose of creation and so on. That means creation, maintenance, annihilation, and so on. Nanu Jiveshwarayohu Prerya Prerakatvam Kutaha. How is it that the Jiva is who is impelled and Ishvara is the impeller? That is stated here in 3 verses, beginning with the current verse. Nirgunasya indicates that the Almighty Supreme Being is not touched by the modes. Swabhavika Shaktya Vyapta Sarvasya Mayaya Vilajyamanaya Yasya Ityadi Anusarena Bahirangya Shaktya. The Supreme Lord pervades over everything through his natural potency known as Maya, who is shy to come before him. So in line with that, we understand that this is actually his external potency. So the modes have been accepted. The 3 modes, Sattva-guna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna, have been accepted for the purpose of creation and so on. I need to type on. I can just give me a minute. Let me just check another edition of Bhagavad Gita. Before my Stityadi Artham Gita, the Supreme Almighty Being, he accepts the gunas through Maya for the purpose of creation and so on. In other words, the modes of material nature are now said to be his, belonging to him, because they belong to his potency. Here, even though uh, Maya always possesses these gunas, still there is a usage of him accepting these gunas. This is similar to expressions like in 10th canto, Tasya Ichchaya Attavapushaha. By his desire, he has assumed this body. Even though Krishna himself is his human-like body, eternally. This is the way common people talk in this world. So this expression is following that worldly usage. The Supreme Lord is the master of the eternal external energy manifested by the three material modes, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance. And as the master of this energy, he is ever unaffected by the influence of such bewildering energy. The living entities, the jivas, however, are affected by or susceptible to being influenced by such modes of material nature. That is the difference between the Lord and the living entity. The living entities are subject to those qualities, although originally the living entities are qualitatively one with the Lord. In other words, the material modes of nature, being products of the energy of the Lord, are certainly connected with the Lord. But the connection is just like that between the master and the servants. The Supreme Lord is the controller of the material energy, whereas the living entities who are entangled in the material world are neither masters nor controllers. Rather, they become subordinate to or controlled by such energy. Actually, the Lord is eternally manifested by his internal potency or spiritual energy, just like the sun and its rays in the clear sky. But at times, he creates the material energy as the sun creates a cloud in the clear sky. As the sun is ever increasingly unaffected by a spot of cloud, so also the unlimited Lord is unaffected by a spot of material energy manifested at times in the unlimited span of the Lord's rays of Brahmajyoti. So the point is, uh, when it says these modes of nature are connected to him or that they bind him, they actually do not bind him because he is Nirguna. But Maya Devi is his energy. And these modes, they now begin to function through Maya. This is the meaning of the expression, they bind him. Him means what? Him means him as a super soul of Maya, as the controller of Maya. And here also, because you may ask, but Maya always possesses the three modes. So that is what Vishnu Chakravarti explains. That just as Krishna eternally has a human-like form, and still there are usages in the scripture similar to worldly usages, that Krishna has accepted this form. So like that, it is said that Maya has accepted these modes. It's 19. That's a quote from Madhvacharya. What happened to that? Yugapat Karmashamupi. What is this? There's actually a quote from Madhvacharya here. Yugapat Karmashopi va iti asya parihara sattvam rajastama iti. नित्यं गृहीता सत्पाद्यास्त्यादिषु विशेषतः युगपत् क्रमशश्चैव गृह्णाति भगवान् स्वयम् इति ब्रह्मवैवर्ते. He quotes from Brahmavaivarta Purana, which says that Satoguna, Rajoguna, Tamoguna are always accepted by him, specifically at the time of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Simultaneously and in sequence, the Supreme Lord accepts them himself. Okay, we come to text 19. कार्य कारण कर्तृत्वे द्रव्य ज्ञान क्रियाश्रया बध्नन्ति नित्यदा मुक्तं मायिनं पुरुषं गुणाः. These three modes of material nature being further manifested as matter, knowledge, and activities put the eternally transcendental living entity under the conditions of cause and effect and make him responsible for such activities. Madhvacharya quotes from Padma Purana. Through Jnanendriyas and the mind, Satoguna binds the Purusha. Rajaha Karmendriye Nityam Sharirena Tamastatha. Rajoguna binds the Purusha through the Karmendriyas, and Tamoguna binds through the body. So eternally this what happens. Antaram yattu kartrutvam tat satvena abhimanyate. Through Satoguna, one develops the internal conception of being the responsible agent or the doer. Rajasa tu abhimanyete karanai karma karanai. Through Rajoguna, one develops the internal conception of the senses which cause one to perform various activities. Shariram Vedanadyam tu tamasadhya abhimanyate. The internal conception of feeling pain and so on pertaining to the body are developed by Tamoguna. Akarta karanair hina sharirena vivarjita nityajnana swaruposau gunaireva abhimanyate. Actually, the pure jiva is not a doer. He is devoid of these senses. He is certainly devoid of the bodies, gross bodies. He is entirely, his very personality is made up of eternal knowledge. But he develops his conceptions because of the gunas. Evam jiva parenaiva preritaha samvritim raje. Jiva is impelled by the Supreme Being. Na parah samvritim kwapi swatantriyad adhikastutaha. Because he is not the Supreme Being at any time. What to speak of him being superior to the Supreme Being? Where is the question of him being superior to the Supreme Being because of his independence? Evam jiva parau bhinnau himanyat shrotamichyasi. In that way, the jiva and the Supreme are distinct. What else do you want to hear? Shrotam, shrotam. Mayinam, jnaninam, swataha. Mayinam here means the one filled with knowledge. वस्तुतः सर्वदा मुक्तमपि मायिनं माया विषयं पुरुषं जीवं बध्नन्ति वा. Now I understand what he has said here. Even though Ishvara is beyond the modes of material nature, these three gunas do bind the jiva, and he accepts these modes for the binding of the jivas because of his dependence, for the purpose of creation, maintenance, annihilation. He is very consistent with the Swami. Okay, so when does this happen? That the jiva is bound, even though the jiva is all the time liberated. Aryam adhibhutam, Karanam adhyatmam, Karta adhidaivam, Tesham bhavas tattvam tasmin, Dravyam mahabhutani Jnana shabdena devata kriya indriyani tadashayas, Tesham karanabhutas tattat abhimanena badhananti. So all of these bind the living entity, the jivatma, through various conceptions. You should first of all understand that this very environment of Maya is a psychological imprisonment for the jivatmas. It puts him, makes him responsible for such activities. Gunaha purusham badhanti, jivam vashīkurvanti. The gunas, they bind the purusha. Ma ayinam. But they do not mind, far out interpretation. Ma inam. He splits it into two words. But not ayinam. He says that ayinam refers to the eternally liberated Sri Vasudeva. Tasya Sarveshwaratvat, because he is the Lord of everyone, including the modes. Tatha cha sa isho yadvashe maya sa jivo yastayardita. Because it is already noted that he is the Lord under whose control Maya is, whereas the other one is the Jiva, who is tormented by Maya. This is from a statement of Vishnu Swami quoted by Sridhar Swami. If I remember correctly, it came in the first canto in the Vyasa Samadhi portion. Deva guna karyaditve tattat tadatme purusham jivam vathananti iti pruthag anushangaha vihpata. So this is a separate incident that it binds the jiva. What is the nature of the person who is bound? Nityata muktamapi. Even though the jiva is liberated at all times. Nano idam viruddham. Is it not contradictory to say that the jiva is constantly liberated and is bound? Tatra aham ayinamiti. Maya atra maya kritha moha uchyate. Such anadiriti eva isha vimukhasya tasya maya paravashyadeva. तेन च गुणावेश एव बन्धः इति साक्षात् बन्ध अभावान् नित्यमुक्तत्वमपि युज्यते इति भावः. Here Maya, in the expression Mayinam, the producer of Maya, what does that Maya mean? That Maya refers to bewilderment. That bewilderment is beginningless. For one who is averse to the Supreme Lord and who is brought under the control of Maya. Here, the Avesha or the overwhelming impact of the gunas is what is called bondage. Because there is no real bondage, it is appropriate to say that they are eternally liberated. अत एव गुणाः पुरुषं जीवं भगवतः तटस्थशक्तिवृत्तिरूपं बध्नन्ति. Therefore, the modes of material nature, they bind the Purusha, that is the Jivatma, who is an extension of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's marginal potency, Ayanam, Ayasanga Sahitam, because he is now in the association of Maya. पूर्वोक्त युक्त्या भगवतः पृष्ठदेशस्थानां जीवानां पृष्ठदेशस्थया मायया स्वत एव संगसंभवात् इति भावः. As noted in the previous argument, in a previous argument, the jivas are situated behind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So naturally, it is possible to associate with Maya, who is also situated behind the Supreme Lord. नित्यमुक्तमिति जीवस्य यथा अनाद्य ज्ञानं तथा अनादि ज्ञानमपि अस्ति इति सप्तमान्ते व्यक्ति भविष्यति. नित्यमुक्तम, just as the jiva has beginningless ignorance, it also has beginningless knowledge. This will be revealed at the end of the 7th canto. Vabhadananti, where does this bondage take place? Here, dravya is dravya, matter, material, refers to the gross elements. Jnana shabdena devata. Knowledge refers to the devas. Kriya, action, refers to knowledge and activities. So, activities refer to the senses. Tat ashrayaha tesham karanabhutaha. The shelter of these are the causes of these. Tat abhimanena vatananti. So they bind the living entity through various forms of self-identification. Tatra jnana kriyayor vaiparityena yatha sankyam gyeyam. Achyutanam.
Prabhu, how Sattvagun binds one? I missed that point. Like Rajogun is binding through Karmendriyas, and how Sattvagun is binding?
Sattva binds the Purusha or the conditioned soul through the Jnanendriyas and the mind.
Hmm. So I misidentify myself with my mind and
Yeah,
and
yeah. So the mode of goodness aspect of Maya brings about that.
It comes in Bhagavad Gita also. One thinks that one is better than other. I forgot the chapter.
It binds through knowledge. Sattva, it comes. Because all the three modes are binding. None of the three modes are liberating. Sukha sanghena, jnana sanghena, like that. But it is much more clear here in Bhagavatam. Because they are between the internal and external potencies, the eternally transcendental living entities are called the marginal potency of the Lord. Actually, the living entities are not meant to be so conditioned by the material energy, but due to that being affected by the false sense of lording it over the material energy, they come under the influence of such potency and thus become conditioned by the three modes of material nature. This external energy of the Lord covers up the pure knowledge of the living entity existing with him. But the covering is so constant. The living entities are eternally existing with the Lord, and they do have pure knowledge. But the external energy of the Lord covers it up. But the covering is so constant that it appears that the conditioned souls are eternally ignorant. Such is the wonderful action of Maya, or the external energy manifested as if materially produced. Actually, the position of the Jivatma has been very nicely analyzed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his writings. It is tatastha. Therefore, it possesses anadi ajnana and anadi jnana, both. By the covering power of the material energy, the material scientists cannot look beyond the material causes, but factually, behind the material manifestations, there are adhibhuta, adhyatma, and adhidaiva actions, which the conditioned soul in the mode of ignorance cannot see. The adhibhuta manifestation entails repetitions of births and deaths with old age and diseases. The adhyatma manifestation conditions the spirit soul, and the adhidaiva manifestation is the controlling system. These are the material manifestations of cause and effect, and the sense of responsibility of the conditioned actor. So the sense of responsibility of the jivatmas is put into them. In this way, we perform various activities. Therefore, we are actors. Actors not in the sense of acting in a drama. The idea is that we are made to perform various activities. We are active persons, but we are conditioned. We are conditioned with this sense of responsibility. That is the abhimana. They are, after all, manifestations of the conditioned state, and the human being's freedom from such conditioned state is the highest perfectional attainment. Text 20. Sa esha bhagavan lingais trivirete radhokshajaha swalakshita gatir brahman sarvesham mamacha ishwaraha mamacha ishwaraha. O Brahmana Narada, the superseer, the transcendent Lord, is beyond the perception of the material senses of the living entities because of the above mentioned three modes of nature. But he is the controller of everyone, including me. Yes.
Prabhu, this sense of responsibility means I am responsible for my activities. But this is not true. Like, it looks like true.
I am responsible for my existence. I am responsible to maintain myself. I am responsible to protect myself. All these thoughts, they are all generated by the modes of material nature. That is the point.
So I am not responsible for my protection and existence. It is all in Lord's hands.
There are 5 causes. Jivatma is one amongst the 5. But he thinks that he is solely responsible. He also thinks that when he endeavors for something and he attains whatever he considers to be success, he thinks that he is solely responsible.
Okay.
Swalakshita gatihi. Lingaihi trivihi etaihi adokshajah swalakshita gatihi. He cannot be perceived through these 3 gunas. Shadgunya says it is by the Lord's mercy that the jiva can recognize his pathway towards the Lord. It is by the Lord's mercy that the jiva is able to see him. Ataha sa esha vashyamaya ebhi gunaihi lingaihi jivanam avarakaihi upadibhihi sushtu alakshita gatihi tattvam yasya sa swayam bhaktereva lakshita gatis tattvam yasya iti va. So the Supreme Lord, who has Maya under his control, his nature or his activities cannot be properly understood because of these modes of material nature which cover up the living entities as those living entities material designations. Another meaning of swalakshita gatihi is that The Supreme Lord's truth can only be understood by his own. By his own means by his own devotees, not by anyone else. एषः नित्यमुक्तः भगवान् अधोक्षजः श्रीवासुदेवः एतैस्त्रिभिर्लिङ्गैर्गुणैः स्वलक्षिता गतिः सुष्ठु अलक्षिता अस्पृष्टा गतिस्तत्त्वं यस्य सः. The conditioned souls cannot perceive the truth about the Lord Adhokshaja, the Lord beyond the senses, Sri Vasudeva, who is eternally liberated. Sarvesham mama cha Ishvara iti tvamapi janasi, tathapi yat prishtam tat kathitam. You also know that he is the Lord of everyone, including me. Still, I have answered according to your question. The Supreme Lord's situation can only be slightly inferred through these three modes. This we understand from Bhagavatam 10.2.35. Otherwise, on the basis of 2.2.35, through inference, the Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, can be slightly inferred as the cause. His nature can be experienced only by his devotees. That Supreme Lord is the possessor of the Maya potency. He cannot be perceived by the jivas because of their coverings in the form of these upadhis, material designations. The Jnani Bhaktas, they can perceive his actions through these very modes of material nature. 10.2.35. In the Bhagavad Gita, 7.24 to 25, the Lord has declared very clearly that the impersonalist who gives more importance to the transcendental race of the Lord as Brahmajyoti and who concludes that the absolute truth is ultimately impersonal and only manifests a form at a time of necessity is less intelligent than the personalist, however much the impersonalist may be engaged in studying the Vedanta. The fact is that such impersonalists are covered by the above mentioned three modes of material nature. Therefore, they are unable to approach the transcendental personality of the Lord. The Lord is not approachable by everyone because he is curtained by his Yogamaya potency. But one should not wrongly conclude that the Lord was formerly unmanifested and has now manifested himself in the human form. This misconception of the formlessness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is due to the Yogamaya curtain of the Lord and can be removed only by the Supreme Will as soon as the conditioned soul surrenders unto him. The devotees of the Lord who are transcendental to the above mentioned three modes of material nature can see the all blissful transcendental form of the Lord with their vision of love in the attitude of pure devotional service. 21. Kalam dharma swabhavam cha mayesho mayaya swaya atman yadrichaya praptam vibhushu rupadade. By his own potency, the Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular natures. The living entities had accepted for being created again before they had independently merged into him. Mayaya swaya. This is Mayaya swaya. By his own mind. So Madhvacharya has noted, Swaya Maya means Swashakya, by Maya, which is his own potency. Tasya Srishtipakaramaha Kalamiti. Now he begins And now he explains the mode of creation. Karma, jiva, drishtam. Here, karma refers to the fate of the living entity. The unseen karmic reactions. This is fate. Vibhu bhushu. Vividham bhavitam ichha. The Supreme Lord desires to become many. This is a reference to Bahusyam, Ajayeya. May I become many. Chaitanya Matamanjusha. Adhana. Srishta Prakaram Chishnu. Now listen to the mode of how creation has taken place. This is set out in several verses beginning with the current verse. Kalan idam upadade. He brought out this world through Kala. Upadana rupena srishtama. He accepted Kala as an ingredient cause and created. Vivu bhushuhu, vividam bhavatum ichuhu. Kaladayah purushadishtitaha sve sve karmani prabhavanti tyaha. Kala and so on are presided by the Purusha. Atmani praptam leenam santam yadachaya svairitaya upadade srishtyartam angikritavahan. Tachana swataha kintu maya eva. So he accepted time and so on for the purpose of creation, not directly, but only through Maya. So Maya Shakti hai Gunai Jagat Kartrutvam Bhagavataha Vadami. Yata Srishtam Idam Ityasya Prashnasya Uttaram Prapanchayati Kalami. He now elaborately presents an answer to the question, by whom has this been created? He does this by talking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead's creation of this world through the modes of his own Maya potency. Kalam, Atman, Smasmin Praptam Linatvena Stitam Karma. See, all these karmic reactions, they were all merged into him. Jiva Drishtam, that is the fate of the Jivas. Swabhavam cha Atmani Jive Linatvena Stitam. And the nature of the Jiva which was merged into the Jiva. Yatrachaya, Swairitaya, by his own wish. Upadade, Srishtyartam Angikritava. So he accepted all of these for the purpose of creation. The creation of the material world, wherein the conditioned souls are allowed to act subordinately by the Supreme Lord, takes place again and again after being repeatedly annihilated. The material creation is something like a cloud in the unlimited sky. The real sky is the spiritual sky, eternally filled with the rays of the Brahmajyoti, and a portion of this unlimited sky is covered by the Mahatattva cloud of the material creation, in which the conditioned souls who want to lord it over the material nature against the will of the Lord are put into play as they desire under the control of the Lord by the agency of his external energy. As the rainy season appears and disappears regularly, the creation takes place. It's again annihilated under the control of the Lord, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.19. So the creation and annihilation of the material worlds is the regular action of the Lord, just to allow the conditioned souls to play as they like, and thereby create their own fate of being differently created again in terms of their independent desires at the time of annihilation. The creation, therefore, takes place at a historical date, as we are accustomed to think of everything which has a beginning in our tiny experience. The process of creation and annihilation is called anadi, or without reference to date, regarding the time the creation first took place, because the duration of even a partial creation is, what is this, 1,000 million, billion, 8,640,000,000 years. The law of creation is, however, as mentioned in the Vedic literatures, that it is created at certain and is again annihilated by the will of the Lord. The whole material or even the spiritual creation is a manifestation of the energy of the Lord, just as the light and heat of a fire are different manifestations of the fire's energy. The Lord therefore exists in his impersonal form by such expansion of energy, and the complete creation rests on his impersonal feature. Nonetheless, he keeps himself distinct from such creation as the Purnam or complete, and so no one should wrongly think, due to the Lord's unlimited impersonal expansions, that his personal feature is not existent. The impersonal expansions are a manifestation of his energy, and is always in his personal feature despite his innumerable unlimited expansion of impersonal energies. Bhagavad Gita 9.5 to 7. For human intelligence, it is very difficult to conceive how the whole creation rests on this expansion of energy. But the Lord has given a very good example in the Bhagavad Gita. It is said that although the air and the atoms rest within the huge expansion of the sky, which is like the resting reservoir of everything materially created, still the sky remains separate and unaffected. Similarly, although the Supreme Lord maintains everything created by his expansion of energy, he always remains separate. This is accepted even by Shankaracharya, the great advocate of the impersonal form of the Absolute. He says Narayana Paro Vyaktat, or Narayana exists separately, apart from the impersonal creative energy. The whole creation thus merges within the body of transcendental Narayana at the time of annihilation, and the creation emanates from his body again with the same unchanging categories of fate and individual nature. The individual living entities, being parts and parcels of the Lord, are sometimes described as Atma because they are qualitatively one with him in spiritual constitution. But because such living entities are apt to be attracted to the material creation, actively and subjectively, they are therefore different from the Lord. Text 22. Kalad guna vyatikara parinama swabhavatah karmano janma mahatah purushathishtitat abhur. After the incarnation of the first Purusha, Karnanavashai Vishnu, the Mahatattva, or the principle of material creation, is generated. And then time is manifested. And in the course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances. They transform into activities. Prakriti Parimanam Subhavatah Gunakala Subhavebhyaha Ishena Adisi Tishtatah Jagadadi Mahatattvam Abhutasya Chayahari. The Mahatattva came about, the variegated world, Mahatattva, and so on, all of that came about by the will of Lord Hari, because the Supreme Lord presided over the modes, time, and the natures of the living entities. This is a quote from Shadgunya. Gunanam Vyatikaraha Kshobaha Samyatyaga. Guna Vyatikaraha, transformation of the modes of nature, means that they are no longer in a state of equilibrium. They are now in a state of agitation. Swabhavataha Parinamaha Rupantarapattihi. And then there is transformation because of nature. Purushaha, Ishvaras, Tena Adhishthittatvam Trayanam Vishesham Mahataha Madam. Ishvarasya Prabhavarupattvena Adau Linatva Kalaha Swayameva Prathamam Karanam. See, time is a form of the Supreme Lord's impact, and it was previously merged into him. Therefore, time is naturally the first cause. Tataha Swabhave Pranamahedo Karmana Dharma Visheshi Samudbuddhe Tadwara Karanam Tatasya Karmanya Buddhe Tadwara Karanam Idivyaya. Karma was in Swabhava. When karma becomes manifest, then one by one, the transformations take place. Purusha Adhishtita, Ishwarechaya Pravruta. And all of this happens because the Purusha incarnation of the Lord has presided over them. In other words, all of these actions are taking place by the will of Ishvara. By omnipotency of the Supreme Lord. The whole material creation evolves by the process of transformation and reactions one after another, and by the same omnipotency, they are wound up again one after another and conserved in the body of the Supreme. Kala or time is synonymous with nature and is a transformed manifestation, the principle of material creation. As such, Kala may be taken as the first cause of all creation, and by transformation of nature, different activities of the material world become visible. These activities may be taken up as a natural instinct of each and every living being. Or even of the inert objects. And after the manifestation of activities, there are varieties of products and byproducts of the same nature. Originally, these are all due to the Supreme Lord. The Vedanta Sutras and the Bhagavatam thus begin with the absolute truth as the beginning of all creations. Janmadhyasya yataha. 23. Mahatastu vikurvana rajasattva brahmita tamah pradhanastu abhavad dravya jnana kriyatmakaha. Material activities are caused by the Mahatattva's being agitated. First, that is the transformation of the modes of goodness and passion. And later, due to the mode of ignorance, matter, material knowledge, and the different activities of material knowledge come into play. Ahankara is of three types because it is the cause of the gross elements, the cause of the Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas. Noted in Garuda Purana. Mahatattva vikurvana vikriyamana, when Mahatattva becomes transformed, tasya cha kriya jnana shaktitva trigunatve trigunatvepi rajasattva abhyam. Ahankara is primarily in tamoguna. Therefore, the effect of ahankara is a lot which is tamasic, the gross elements. Rajasam, Satvikam, cha alpam. And Rajoguna and Sattva-guna, the effects of Rajoguna and Sattva-guna are very little in ahankara state of matter. Evam tat upadishu jiveshu api athaiva tamasadikya. The jivas also experience these tamasic upadis. Vikurvana, vishishtam kriyamana, tama pradhanastu abhavan, iti atra ya iti adhyana. So initially, tamoguna was predominant. Initially, Rajoguna, Sattva-guna was predominant. And then from Mahatattva, the various padarthas, they came out. All the three causes are there here. Adibhuta cause in the form of gross matter. Adhidaiva cause in the form of knowledge. Adhyatma cause in the form of action. Material creations of every description are more or less due to the development of the mode of passion, rajas. The Mahatattva is the principle of material creation. When it is agitated by the will of the Supreme at first, the modes of passion and goodness are prominent, and afterwards the mode of passion being generated in due course by material activities of different varieties becomes prominent, and the living entities are thus involved more and more in ignorance. Brahma is a representation of the mode of passion, and Vishnu is a representation of the mode of goodness, while the mode of ignorance is represented by Lord Shiva, the father of materialistic activities. Material nature is called the mother, and the initiator for materialistic life is the father, Lord Shiva. All material creation by the living entities is therefore initiated by the mode of passion. With the advancement of a particular millennium, the different modes act by gradual development. In the age of Kali, when the mode of passion is most prominent, material activities of different varieties in the name of advancement of human civilization take place, and the living entities become more and more involved in forgetting their real identity, the spiritual nature. By a slight cultivation of the mode of goodness, a glimpse of the spiritual nature is perceived, but due to the prominence of the mode of passion, the mode of goodness becomes adulterated. Therefore, one cannot transcend the limits of the material modes. Therefore, realization of the Lord, who is always transcendental to the modes of material nature, becomes very difficult for the living entities, even though prominently situated in the mode of goodness, through cultivation of the various methods. The gross material elements are adhibhutam, their maintenance is adhidaivam, and the initiator of material activities is called adhyatma. In the material world, these three principles act as prominent features, namely as a raw material, its regular supply, and its use in different varieties of material creations for sense enjoyment by the bewildered entities. Text 24. Sohankare iti prokto vikurvan samabhut tridha vaikarikas taidesascha amasascheti yad bhida dravya shakti kriya shakti jnana shakti iti prabho. The self-centered materialistic ego, thus being transformed into three features, becomes known as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance in three divisions, namely the powers that evolve matter, knowledge of material creations, and the intelligence that guides such materialistic activity. Narada, you are quite competent to understand this. Prabho means O capable one, literally. Vishishta karya saktitva deva vaikarika smrita. Vaikarika, in the mode of goodness. This refers to the devas, because they are capable of engaging in special activities, special duties to be performed. Ati jajwalyamanatva tejasaniindriyanyapi. The senses are considered to be taijasaha. Taijasa. Senses have come out of the mode of passion because they are greatly shining. Tamasani tu bhutani yatastavanna tu bhayam. And tamasaha here refers to the gross elements, because they do not have either of these features. This is a quote from Padma Purana. Such a vikurvan rupantaram gachan. This is a note of further transformation. Vaividhyamevaha, vaikarika satvika, taijasa rajasa, yadbhida yasya bhedaha, dravya shakti ityadini, pratilomyena trayanam lakshanam. Dravye mahabhutakye shaktiryasya, kriyasu indriyeshu shaktiryasya, jnaneshu vedeshu shaktiryasya. So there are three powers. The potency of the gross elements, the potency of the senses and various activities. The gross elements constitute the ingredient, and the potency in knowledge, in Vedic knowledge. Hey Prabhu, Odhum Shakta, oh one who can understand this. Should be understood that Rajoguna is the cause of this transformation. So along with that, there are portions of Satoguna and Tamoguna in order to bring about the desired results. Atra Samya Avastham Gunatrayam Eva Pradhanam. So when the three modes of material nature are in a state of equilibrium, then it is known as Pradhana. Material nature is known as Pradhana. Tasya Kalena Sattva Amshasya Udrekaha Mahatatva. with Kala, when there is an increase in the Sattva aspect, Sattva element, Sattva Guna, Mahatattva, Mahatattva, it is transformed into Mahatattva. Rajaha Amshasya Udrekaha. And when the portion of Rajaguna increases, Mahatattva Bhedaha Sutra Tattva. Then Mahatattva is further transformed into something known as Sutra. Sutra. We will come across this in the 11th canto. Tamomshasya Udrekaha Ahankara Tattvam. And when Tamoguna increases, then it is transformed into Ahankara, the principle of false ego. Ataha Ahankara Karyeshu Tamasam Akashadikam Bahu. And the effect of Ahankara is a lot, which is in Tamoguna, the modes of material, the gross elements, beginning with ether. Rajasam Satvikam Cha Alpam. And the effects of Rajoguna and Satoguna are very little. Evam tad upadikeshu jiveshu api tamasa adhikyam. In that way, the jivas, for whom these are all designations, tamoguna is predominant. Materialistic ego, or the sense of identification with matter, is okay. I'll stop with this. Anyway, it's 8:59. But tomorrow I'll start with this. I'll just put a note that I have to read out the purport to 2.5.24. Tomorrow there's no class, but Friday, 20th December, we'll resume. Okay. We'll stop with that. Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.